Welcome, everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 12th of July, 2023, and this is the Cluster API project meeting. Cluster API is a sub-project of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which basically means, please be kind to everyone, and if you'd like to speak, raise your hand, and I will call on you. At the beginning of our meetings, we usually spend a minute or two to give new attendees a chance to introduce themselves to the group if they like. So I will be quiet for a minute or two, and if you would like to, please feel free to unmute and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Abdurrahman, and I have recently started getting to know this project better, and I've been in touch with a few people over here, such as William and Joe. I'm trying to explore this one, and yeah.
Welcome, Abdur. That's awesome.
Thank you. Looking forward.
All right. Anyone else? Going in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's move on with the rest of the meeting then. So let's look at the open proposal readouts. I think we just have one open proposal. I don't know, Richard or Fabrizio, is there any update here that we need to talk about?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay.
No, me.
Okay, thank you. All right, then, moving on to the regular discussion topics. Nawaz, you have the first topic with the CAPI 1.5.0 release. Please take it away.
Hey, thank you. So we released CAPI v 1.5.0 release candidate 1 yesterday, and the release notes are there mentioned underneath it. Thanks to all the community and the contributors for their amazing contributions. Just wanted to call it out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nawaz. Another great release here. All right, Killian, you've got the next topic about adding a release writer role. Please take it away.
Correct. Yeah, so this relates to the release team. So currently there are 3 lead roles on the release team and then a bunch of other team members. So there's a release lead, a CI manager, and a communications manager. So this adds a 4th role that we've had in the past 2 release teams in a de facto position. So it's a release writer. So there are certain tasks that have to be done by somebody with write access to the repo, which is like creating the release tag, creating the release branch, and actually publishing the release. We looked at ways of getting around this, didn't find anything suitable yet. So for the next release cycle, the 1.6 release cycle, I'm proposing that we just make this a formal position, but make it as lightweight as possible. So the idea here is that the release writer is not a member of the release team and that they don't have to attend meetings. They don't have any other tasks inside the release team. Their only job is they should be available on release days. They should know when the release days are. They should be in contact with the release lead to do these mechanical tasks of actually writing the tags, creating branches, and publishing releases. So yeah, it'd be good for if we get more eyes on this from people who are in the release team now, have been in previous release teams or involved with releases, just to make sure that this is suitable. But I think what this is doing is just making concrete what we already had, so that there isn't confusion about this role going forward. And hopefully at some point in the future, we can get rid of this altogether.
Okay, cool. So I see Cecile has got her hand up. Please, Cecile, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it sounds good to me to formalize what we're doing right now, although I think this person has to be one of like very few people, right? It's like 3-4 of us that actually have access to push tags. So I think it's hard if at the beginning of the cycle, these people might not know that they're going to be available exactly at that time on those days. Like they can prioritize being available, but people have things come up, take, time off. So it might be, but actually it might be a good idea for them to, if they can't be available, find a replacement, now that I'm thinking about it, so that we can make sure one person is available. But I think the best, like, ideal scenario would be, like you said, if we don't require those people anymore. And I think we talked about, as a release task for last time, having a automation to actually create the tag. I was just wondering, like, have we made progress on that? Is that something that is doable? Are we like technically blocked, or is it just like we just haven't had time to get it done?
I will say that myself, and I'm not sure if Joe is on the call, we took a look at this during this release cycle, automating this. There are technical issues that aren't, we'll say, insurmountable, but we didn't have time to fix them. But the biggest issue is around security and maintainability of this release process. So there is an idea that we would be able to create the tags using GitHub Action. This will get rid of a GPG key that we use currently. So currently we use a GPG key to sign our tags. So we would have to get rid of that, or else create a GitHub user. There's just a number of issues with it that I think we can take offline. But yeah, definitely the substitute. So on line 484 there, under the responsibilities of the release writer, that's the one thing that kind of have to continuously do, is make sure that there's a substitute. But if they're not going to be available, but it's the release lead's job to kind of give them a heads up ahead of a date. But yeah, like you said, I think ideally we would want to get rid of this so it's not on the shoulders of so few people. But yeah, there are just technical and security challenges to getting it done.
Stefan, you got your hand up, please.
Yep. Was agreed that ideally we automate it if you find a secure way to do it and a maintainable way to get this automation done. But independent of that, I think what the automation brings us is basically that we can probably do the releases a bit more async, but it doesn't remove the dependency on a maintainer, because at least if we don't change more stuff, because as of today, I think intentionally need maintainer approval to promote images to production, and that also has to happen towards the end of the release process. So it's definitely more convenient if on that day the maintainer only has to like approve 1 or 2 PRs versus actively, I don't know, git tag, git push. But just automating the git tag push and related stuff in there won't mean that we don't need a maintainer available on the day of the release.
Joe, please.
So I think, yeah, it's a little bit more than just tagging. Tagging is step one, right? We got to tag the release. For a full release, we actually have to cut a branch. Then the image promotion PR, and then finally actually updating the release information, right? So there's kind of four things that a maintainer has to do, essentially holding our hands through the process. I don't know what all we can remove, what all we can automate. We did look into the tagging, but with the GPG stuff, the kind of consensus was we don't know about security and how that would work and how we would feel about that. So we could automate the tagging probably fairly quickly, but then the rest of it would still require somebody to help out and kind of be available, was the thinking.
Fabrizio, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, we discussed a lot of this. I think that taking a step back is fair for the release team to have a maintainer around when there is a release, because maintainer can help if there are issues. It can do some work, the less the better. But I think that is fair to have a maintainer in charge the day of the release. And so in +1 to get this formalized, I think we should be flexible. There will be a maintainer in charge. If he is not available, he have to figure it out, another maintainer to be around. But I think that I'm +1. Maintainer at the end are responsible, and they bring the biggest value that they bring is expertise that can help during a release. So definitely +1 for me. Just on small needs. I think that maintainer in charge is better than a release writer as a name for this role. It is less confusing, but those are needs that we will discuss in the PR.
Cecile, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to +1 Fabrizio's 2 points. I think he said a lot better what I was trying to say. I think it makes a lot of sense to have someone who's like on call for the release, but I still think we should still try to go and try to make the release team have all the permissions and like access they need to actually do things in the release, because the goal is for the maintainers to be able to get out of the way, and so that the release team can actually do like the things of tagging and I think there are solutions for all the things you mentioned. It's just that we have to figure them kind of one by one. Even for promotion, like image promotion, I think it wouldn't be I think it'd be acceptable if we added the release leads to the owner's file for images in the image promotion repo temporarily during a release cycle. Even better if we can figure out an alias so that the alias can be updated without changing the owner's file. But anyways, now I'm getting into implementation details, but yeah, and also +1 to changing the name to something a bit more like, maintainer. So it's obvious that other people can't apply to be the release writer, because this is a set of people that can be release writer, not a general role that people can work on.
All right, it seems like the flow of hands going up has slowed down. I would invite everyone to leave comments on this PR. I think there's been a great discussion here. And with that said, Joe, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. My brain's slower than most. So adding, I think Cecilia, you mentioned giving somebody on the release leads the ability to add the tag. Is it I don't know GitHub permissions well enough, but like, can they also have permission to do a release, but maybe not write directly to the repo? Like, is it that fine grain? Like, if those two are kind of it, I think that helps remove a lot of kind of the ask. I don't know.
I can maybe answer. So I think there's probably a lot possible on the GitHub side. I think the only thing that we have today is basically we have a role which is basically write access to the repository. So you can push branches, tags. I think you can delete branches, but you can push branches. And you can create releases, delete releases, all that sort of stuff. And then we have, like, let's call it full admin access, which gives you literally every right entire repository, which also means you see the settings tab and can change config there. Hopefully nobody does it, but yeah. So I think we have basically right in admin today, in the way that core CAPI is set up, and probably a lot of others, because you see, if you look at the repository in Kubernetes where this is defined, you usually see maintainers and admin groups. I don't know how much is possible with the automation that is behind those. Basically, we have YAML files defining all of those, and I think then there is tooling behind from, I don't know, probably SIG contracts or something to sync those into actual GitHub permissions. So we would have to take a closer look what we can do there and how fine granular that tooling is, or if we can extend the tooling and that sort of stuff. Or we can basically, I mean, we have admin access, right? So we can configure whatever we want, but that wouldn't be defined, and yeah, it wouldn't be defined in some Kubernetes community repository. It wouldn't be protected by the normal authorization stuff. It's just something that we customize by ourselves. So maybe an option, maybe not, I don't know.
Furkat, you had your hand up, please.
Yeah, I'm seconding kind of what Stefan said. I think we have to look into upstream Kubernetes. I'm not expert at all on how they handle that, but as far as I know, they have a dedicated GitHub team, like with members, called release managers. and they actively they take turns and push the releases for patch or even the minor, since they maintain different minor releases, so 24, 25, 26. So they do it in turn. So maybe we have to look into that direction also, and maybe introduce something similar in CAPI.
All right, cool. Thank you. So if there's nothing else on this topic, I would invite the lively discussion to continue on the PR, please. I'm not seeing any more hands move up, so we'll move on to the next topic. Mike and Alex, you guys have a topic about KubeCon CAPI operator talk. Please take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Kay. Yeah, I'm back from vacation, and yeah, so yesterday we received a message from Lubomir saying about the possibility of applying for KubeCon, and Alex and I would like to go there and make a talk about cluster API operator. And please tell us what the procedure of submission and what we should do from our side. As I remember, Lubomir mentioned that it would be good to have the presentation slides ready. Is there anything else needed?
Lubomir, please go ahead.
Hi. So we had a discussion about this during the sequence lifecycle meeting. Basically, the CNCF is limiting the amount of talk slots we have for SIG projects to something like 2. So essentially, you are requesting that you take one of the slots. We basically have to decide who can take the slot. So if you have your presentation ready for us, we can have a look, and basically the SIG leads have to decide. You know, it's a pity if something doesn't make it, but that's how it is because we are limited. So I know Minikube also want to send the talk. Maybe somebody else also wants to. So we have to ultimately decide what is the most interesting sub-project topic for us to submit.
Fabrizio, you've got your hand up, please.
Yeah, I'm not really up to speed. I also missed yesterday SIG cluster Lifecycle. As far as I'm aware, I think that it will be enough to have a concept about the talk. It's not necessary to have the full slides. And this will say to at least for the SIG leads to decide. The other option will be we submit everything and we basically go to the CNCF lottery. But yeah, I think that makes sense what Lubomir is suggesting. I'm just thinking if there is a way to give the SIG lead enough information to decide without asking people to do all the slides in advance.
Vince, please go ahead.
Just one clarification on what Lubomir mentioned. So we already submitted 2 talks, but for sub-project, it is going to be a lottery. That's my understanding. So I would submit everything. And so if we have another talk, we should just submit it, Lubomir, and then basically let the fate decides which ones are going to go into the speaking rounds.
Lubomir, please.
I think last time for Europe, we submitted some talks. They kind of overlapped some projects into the eyes of the reviewers. So I don't think a lottery is a good option at all. Since they basically started confusing what is a sub-project and what isn't. So I think it's probably better for us to just filter on our side because we actually know what is a sub-project in this group. I don't think that it's manageable by them to do it for us. And quite frankly, if they have problems with this lottery, they might just pick what comes first.
Okay, so maybe we can, I mean, we should have probably talked before, like, 'cause when I posted the message, it was like a few weeks or a month ago or something. So we went ahead, submitted it. I don't know if we can retract one of the submissions, or both. So let's just speak offline, but all this to say, like, we actually already submitted the two talks. I did it myself because nobody replied until we actually spoke yesterday.
You submitted the Minikube talk or the operator?
No, it was the CAPI deep dive and the intro for the SIG.
So the intro for the SIG is already a reserved slot. They all six have it. So it's guaranteed. So the CAPI deep dive apparently is already like a sub project slot that is taken. Again, like we speculate on 2 as a total number of sub projects. I don't think we can request more. They are really hesitant about giving us more than that. So it's like we have to bargain, basically. So, for example, I see now a proposal to have this cluster API operator as well. Sure, maybe that's the second one we can send, but also I see the Minikube folks have want to have a talk. So
Okay.
effectively, we have like sub projects fighting for a slot.
Okay, let's collect these. I mean, submission, I think it's relatively soon, so we will need to decide by the end of this week.
Yeah, so from our side, we just need to prepare slides and just a short abstract about the talk, and we will send it to the Slack channel. Okay.
It sounded like you didn't actually need to do the slides as well. They're just an abstract and detail, but obviously if you have slides, that's probably good as well.
Okay,
Fabrizio,
yeah.
please go ahead.
I was echoing what you're saying. You don't need the slide for the submission. You need only an abstract. This will be good enough to decide.
Okay, so in this case, we'll pair with Alex tomorrow morning and we'll prepare an abstract. So by the end of tomorrow, we'll post it. Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Mike. And it sounds like the SIG maybe has a little bit of organization to do as well, because this Sunday, I believe, is the deadline for maintainer track talks. So if there's already 2 posted and there are multiples coming in, I guess SIG cluster lifecycle will need to kind of figure that out.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Next on the agenda, Killian, you've got a topic about API version V1 Alpha 3. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so we're coming up to the release 1.5. It's going to be in about 2 weeks. So in 1.5, so I think the issue is probably better, which is the second link there. Yeah, well, I've brought this up a few times, but in 1.5, the V1 Alpha 3 API version will no longer be served in Cluster API. And then in 1.6 as PR open, that will stop V1 Alpha 4 from being served. So these API versions are deprecated. They've both been deprecated for over a year, about a year and a half, I think, in case V1 Alpha 3 now. So yeah, so this is just a heads up that if you have stuff running on V1 Alpha 3, V1 Alpha 4, please upgrade and please test to make sure that, yeah, that your projects are working with 1.5 as it comes out. So this is currently the state for V1 Alpha 3 in the release candidate for V1.5. So if you test ahead, you'll find bugs. So in V1.5, it will be possible to roll this back because the API is just no longer served. It's not removed yet, but it will be removed in the next version.
Okay, great. Good public service announcement for all the provider maintainers out there. I know I've got a little work to do as well. All right, Richard, you've got the next topic with a choose your own adventure provision of production cluster. Please take it away.
Thanks. Yeah, very quick one. So I'm down to
do the Choose Your Own Adventure show next week on Tuesday with Whitney and Victor. Basically where they take the path to production, and each of the stages they pick 2 technologies and they pitch, and then people ask questions, etc. So this one is about Crossplane and CAPI. So first ask is if anyone has any specific points they'd like in the pitch for me to include, then feel free to ping me. And the second one is if anyone has a burning desire to actually do the show instead of me, I'm more than happy to pass the baton on. So yeah, that's the 2 asks really.
Okay, great. Yeah, I hadn't heard about this this broadcast before. It looks pretty cool. So yeah, if anyone out there is interested in getting more involved in this, or you've got some points that you think should be brought up during that, please reach out to Richard in Slack. And if you want to really get involved, it sounds like maybe there's a chance for you to appear on the show as well. So please reach out to Richard. All right, Joe, you've got the next topic with a call out for a CI release lead. Please take it away.
Hey. Yeah, so sorry. Just a real quick, we're putting together the release team for 1.6. I think we've got most of the team, but we're looking for somebody to take over as the release lead for CI. It sounds like there's some potentially good amount of work there with some intimate knowledge of testing and test infrastructure. So if anybody is interested and wants to help out there, please reach out to me or anybody on the team, and I will have a conversation and see where it goes.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I know we've got a lot of people looking to get more involved in projects. So yeah, that's great, Joe. Thank you. Fabrizio, you've got your hand up. Please go ahead.
Just stressing what Joe is calling out. So CI lead is crucial for getting the next release out. It's a really important role. It is a role where you can learn a lot. We already invested time and effort in recording a lot of how-to sessions. We as a maintainer, we will be always available to help people to ramp up. So it is important for the project. It is a good opportunity to learn. Don't be shy, step in.
Joe, please. Go ahead.
Yep, sorry. One quick follow-up to that, Fabrizio. I think you mentioned that there was some upcoming infrastructure changes, possibly for end-to-end tests for the next release team. And one of the things that we've done for the next team is the CI team is a little bit bigger than typical. So there's a good number of folks who are excited to be on the team and help out there as well. So we're kind of looking for the lead to help take charge and run with it. So.
And I guess like I know we're talking about there'll be like lots of help and there's good support and everything there, but for anyone who might be watching or might be rewatching this or something, becoming a lead sounds kind of challenging. What kind of experience or background might someone want to have to step into this?
Sorry, I think I can possibly answer some of that, but not all of it. I think some knowledge of just CNCF stuff, cloud infrastructure stuff, just general leadership qualities to have or to grow into, some ambitions there. A somewhat, I wouldn't even say intimate knowledge of Cluster API itself, right? As the lead, you can help remove distractions and help plan and the other things that would go into the leadership role. But having somebody with intimate knowledge would be a huge plus, but not required, right? So.
Okay, great. Yeah, like I just want to, I know like I've seen a lot of people coming around the Kubernetes community looking for places they can help out and everything. And it sounds like, if you're someone who's looking to kind of, take on a little more leadership or looking to move into one of these leadership roles, this is a good place to learn about that. You probably do want to have some CNCF knowledge and some cluster API knowledge. So this isn't an absolute beginner kind of thing. So, but a great opportunity for the community. Thank you. Okay. So next topic, Daniil, you've got an issue here. Please take it away.
Yeah, I'm sorry if probably it's a bit out of context for this meeting. Just a simple question about the interest in community towards having some arbitrary filters for cluster IP resources to solving cases like sharding the management of the resources between several copy installations, and whether or not is something which community is looking for, because during the discussion it seems to be that the issue should go, or the implementation should go to controller runtime, and the problem is here that it relies very much on embedded structures in IP machinery, and the maintainers of IP server probably don't want cell expressions, which might be a good idea to plug here to support such a feature because of complexity concerns. And the question is here whether or not is it like a typical use case for someone to try it out in their clusters or not. Yeah, just asking the community about some ideas at this point, because I feel like it might not be possible to fix it otherwise. Yeah.
Cool. Good question. Does anyone have thoughts about this that they'd like to respond? Or perhaps further questions? Yeah, Fabrizio, please.
Yeah, I think that the issue is not really the filters, but it is our stance against running multiple instances of copy in the same cluster. So we took a decision some time ago that this is not the recommended way, because it brings in a lot of complexity, because the issue is not only running issue of copy, but is that you have only one copy of the cluster API CRD, and this is hard to combine with many versions of the provider. So if we go back to this decision, still those problems still exist, and so unless we find a way to solve this problem, I think that having a filter is not going to solve this problem. Second, there is a good discussion and comment on the issue about the fact that filters are not enough, because, for instance, if the cache is not filtering with the same criteria, then you will have a very inefficient usage of memory, because you have a controller that is going to cache everything, even if you are reconciling only a subset of it. So my take here is that there are a bigger problem, which is foundational in Kubernetes about how we manage CRDs. I'm not sure that I want to, and also if we have the primitives that we rely on, cluster API, caching, control runtime, caching, etc., are not really adequate for this. But the issue is, again, CRDs existing only one time. So my concern is that we build something inside cluster API, we take ownership of the problem, but the primitives are not really there. So I think that we should take a step back, think about the original use case, think about if Kubernetes itself is adequate is ready for this scenario or not.
So it sounds like you're kind of positing that there's like, and this is more of a systemic thing with Kubernetes than just a cluster API kind of issue.
Yeah, we before I'm talking about this because before we in cluster cattle we were supporting many instances of copy in the same cluster, and we decided to move away because basically Kubernetes is not designed for this. You can have many instances of the controller, but they are forced to share the same version of the CRD. And this doesn't work well because when every instance of the controller make assumption on how the CRD are. And so it is hard. We don't have test coverage for this. We are not ready for this.
All right, thanks for the explanation. Like this, it sounds like a complicated issue here to unwind. Yeah, and it looks like there's been a good discussion even as of today on this issue. So I guess if others are listening and are curious about this topic, please visit the issue and leave your thoughts there. And maybe this is something we can't solve in Cluster API. There needs to be a more systemic kind of look at this. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, next topic. Stefan, looking for opinions about aligning to KK and using the latest stable Go miner. Please take it away.
At this point, more like heads up, I think. So Carlos was asking today, basically, if there's any ongoing work about this, but let me give you the context first. So context is basically an upstream Kubernetes that decided, I think already a while ago, to always use the latest Go miner version in all release branches. Basically, so when they release Kubernetes, that they always have a supported Go version, because with the support range that Kubernetes has, like, I don't know, a year or let's say 12 to 15 months. And with the support range that Go has, which is like 12 months, and they usually run out of support of a Go version. I think it's the same in Cluster API, even worse, because let's say Kubernetes is already releasing with 12, let's say with 8 or 9 months of support, because they don't perfectly align to the Go version. And then we use the same Go version as upstream Kubernetes, but release, let's say, a month later or 2 or 3 months later. Then probably when we release the Cluster API version, we have maybe half a year of Go support. So I don't know the exact technicalities, but we definitely run into the problem that our Go versions are running out of support during the time when we support a specific Cluster API minor version. What I linked here is basically the Slack thread that Carlos started today. So I think the discussion is just getting started. And I also linked the upstream Kubernetes cap. I'll take a closer look into this. But I think we should probably seriously think about aligning to what they're doing. I also have to think a little bit about how or if this affects controller runtime. And if we should do something similar in control runtime. I think the main thing is basically in upstream Kubernetes, they changed the Go version with which they compile their binaries. So the release artifacts, APIs, or controller managed, et cetera, they are compiled with a certain Go version. Controller runtime doesn't have any binaries that it releases, it's just a library. So it could be that for controller runtime, it totally doesn't matter. But again, Cluster API, it matters because we also have cluster cuddle and controllers that we release. So yeah, if someone is interested in that, either speak up now or follow the thread, or I guess if you actually want to make it happen, there will be an issue at some point. I am basically currently waiting for answers from Carlos to see. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, so we got a +1 from Lubomir in chat, and Fabrizio, you've got your hand up, so please take it away.
Yeah, I think that we should start tracking, and since Kubernetes is doing, we should do it. What we can do is to try to highlight what is the impact on providers if we do this in copy. If we make this clear, then I think that we can speed up the discussion. So what happens if copy bumps Golang version in older release? What is expected for provider to happen, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think that makes absolute sense, and that is one of the first things that I would have looked for. So my expectation, given that Kubernetes is doing it, is something like it probably only affects the binaries that we produce. And if someone imports our library, it doesn't affect them. But that is 100% something that we have to confirm. Because I mean, if they bump in upstream Kubernetes, let's say they bump the version from 1.18 to 19 to 20 for client Go, and that affects everyone that uses client Go, that would be pretty drastic. So my suspicion is a bit that it doesn't impact consumers of the dependencies of the libraries, basically because they don't bump the version in Go mod. They just bump the version with which they compile everything, if I got it correctly at this point. But yeah, 100%. That's the thing we have to figure out. Basically, who does it affect, and also how are providers affect? What is the recommendation, I would say, for providers? If they should do the same, or what do they have to do, or can they just ignore it? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like it's a good idea in general, but we need to do a little bit of legwork to make sure that we don't leave providers behind before we make this kind of change or start doing these kind of backports or something. Any other questions or comments on that topic? Okay, I'm not seeing anything else there. So that is our regular agenda. We'll move into the provider updates now. So for CapV, Christian, please take it away.
Yeah, I just wanted to give the feedback. V1.5.0 beta 1 is merged in main for CapV. Looks good so far, and RC.0 PR is in flight. So yeah, that's basically it. Thanks.
All right, cool. Thanks for the update. Richard had to drop from the call, but he wanted to announce that there's a Kappa release for 2.2.0. And I guess he's also saying no one is dedicated to the project right now, and we're in need of new reviewers there. So again, to the folks who might be watching or listening or watching this later or something, if you are looking to get involved, the Kappa, which is the AWS provider for Cluster API, could use some help. Please take a look. So next up is Cap OCI. Joe, please take it away.
Yep, just a real quick call out. We continue in our releases, so we're in 1.12 now. 12, which has some support for OKE, managed clusters, and things of that nature. But the other thing I wanted to call out was we tested the RC0, not landed any code, but we were able to test it real quick. The other thing I definitely want to call out here real quick is the comms team for release. Cutting those issues has been awesome. I just went through all the tickets, and all the providers are at least acknowledging like, hey, we're behind, or hey, we're working on it. Amazing. That was awesome.
Very cool. Good to hear. And lastly, Cap Z, Matt, please take it away.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Just want to let people know we're going to do some patch releases and also the Cap Z minor release today, possibly tomorrow if we're waiting for one little fix. And that we've also started doing the CAPI 1.5 integration, most of which is straightforward, but for better or worse, CapZ is starting to lean on this component called Azure Service Operator, which also has a hard dependency on controller runtime. So we're kind of stuck until they upgrade. So I guess TLDR, just make, if you haven't started integrating yet, definitely give it a shot because there's a lot of work to do. That's all.
All right. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the agenda. Fabrizio, you've got your hand up, please.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for everyone for sharing feedback from providers. This is really important for us to get to reach confident the GA date. Yeah, I echo what Matt was saying. Given the changes in controller runtime, this CAPI bump requires quite a bit of work. So the sooner you start, the better. Thank you everyone again for those feedbacks. I really appreciate it.
Yes, if you have not upgraded to controller runtime, 0.15, please start. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm not seeing any hands going up or other things in chat. So yeah, I guess thanks for coming out, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.